2-sentence-horror. Our town's population sign says 1 million. That number is strictly maintained. As per the doctor's orders, we used an earwax removal camera to see what was causing my wife distress. As we got deeper in the canal, we never expected to see something open its mouth before the camera feed ended. 10 hours ago, I became paralyzed during some kinky fun. The constant ache has only gotten worse, as my pressurized urine is still unable to push out the Nintendo DS stylus. I smiled when I saw my daughter's paper had an A+. Organs with that blood type would fetch a premium. 10 hours into the expedition, they started hearing children crying. The crew in the submarine quickly began heading back to the surface. "Turn the TV on!" she shouted through the phone. "Any channel." "It's just one little needle, just one quick prick, and then we'll get some ice cream, okay? I hate to waste good heroin on this little shit, but that should keep him quiet for a few days, so I can go party." "The body was rigid, blood has stopped moving, and livor mortis is being notified," said the doctors. Horror is deep within my mind as the desire for flesh starts overtaking my will to stay dead after the infection. "It was just a dream, honey," said my husband comfortingly as I woke up hyperventilating and in cold sweats. I gave him a slight smile and turned to the opposite side, laying in a fetal position, trembling and completely paralyzed with fear, remembering that I had been unmarried all my life. I thought seeing my child die less than a day after being born is the worst possible experience. "I'm sorry, but your child was in your insurance for less than 24 hours, so you are on your own for the medical bill." "I shouldn't be here," he cried. Curious, the demon paused his ministrations, checked the paperwork, and retorted, "Do you have any idea how many people sold their souls to me to pay their rent to you?" After I provided the address to first responders, I asked the caller if she was certain that her mother, her father, and the father of her child were indeed deceased. "Yes, I'm positive I killed both of them," was her cold reply. The McAllister family massacre, one of the bloodiest in history, claimed 14 lives in December 1990 and was never solved. The lone survivor, who was just 8 at the time, would never be the same, but at least his parents, siblings, aunt, uncle, and cousins learned their lesson about calling him names. They say you die twice, your last breath, and the last time someone remembers you. I only wish I had stopped breathing first. Good news, the plastic-eating bacteria we released to solve the global plastic waste problem are tremendously effective. Bad news, we severely underestimated the amount of microplastics in an average modern human body.
"If you end yourself, you go to hell," I tell my friend, as I take the gun from his hands. "Let me do it for you instead," I say, pulling the trigger. The machine moved through its victims mercilessly, with no rhyme or reason to how it decided who lived and who died. "I'm sorry, ma'am." The doctor spoke quietly. "Your son's claim for the treatment has been denied." "Yeah, the realtor told me this place once belonged to some crazy axe murderer, but it was the only place I could afford." The blood-stained woman with an axe lodged in her head stared at me incredulously. "Is the housing market that bad these days?"
My toddler Trey would adorably mispronounce his name and would constantly ask for things by repeating "Tree-want," screaming his name as we searched the forest for him. I noticed a small, bloody handprint on a now swollen tree trunk, and I realized my son had never been mispronouncing anything. Before they sealed the coffin, the funeral director granted Alice a few moments alone with her father so she could remove something extremely personal to her. She left the chapel and slid the matchbox closed, knowing she had severed the head of the monster that had once caused her so much pain and agony. The Who announced the end of the world with 4 words: "Prions have become airborne." "Lovely whistling, Jessica," I called to my sister as we explored the pitch-black cave, each one of us roaming a different passage. "Stephen," my sister's trembling voice echoed through the cave, "I don't know how to whistle." As I dragged my brother out from his boyfriend's arms, I screamed and told him this was an abomination. The poor man had been dead and buried for years, but my brother was never really able to move on. "Follow these instructions step by step, or your daughter will die." I told my wife I wasn't a doctor, and performing surgery with instructions downloaded from the internet was a bad idea, but we had no choice. Our insurance wouldn't cover a hospital stay, much less an operation.
The kids at school bullied the smart, red-haired girl with the silver coat and NASA rucksack relentlessly, calling her Space Rocket. On a trip to the local spaceport where her mom worked, the girl handed out official launch pad tickets to see the rocket up close, though the kids laughed ironically when the countdown started and she was nowhere to be seen. Attending nurse's notes. First baby of the new year. Born at 12:01 a.m. January 1st, 2025. 6 pounds, 6 ounces, 16 inches long. 32 fully formed teeth. Silent. Never stops smiling. "Hey babe, want to see some hot action?" she teased, running a finger down my chest. The next thing I knew, I was strapped to a furnace, my organs sizzling on a steel tray as she leaned in close, whispering, "Don't worry, I'll make sure you're well done."
Dear passengers, there has been a medical emergency, the flight attendant announced, trying not to panic. Is there a pilot on board, or anyone that can fly a Boeing 747? She didn't know what the doctor was saying to her parents, or why he occasionally mentioned her star sign and got it wrong. I'm not the crab, I'm the 2 fishes. My girlfriend cried in my arms after her miscarriage at 7 months. I was so relieved knowing that she thought her fall was an accident on her part. We're so blessed to finally introduce you to your new sibling. My parents beamed with prideful tears, holding the bloodied newborn, cutting the umbilical cord. They ignore the torn-up remains she came from moments before as they rush to have me hold my new sister. "I'll kill him," said the crying man, after his therapist helped him remember all the abuses that he had suffered in his childhood. After the man left her office, the therapist continued reading a book titled Memory Distortion and False Memory Creation. After subsisting on kangaroo meat until I was rescued as one of the few survivors of the plane crash all those years ago, I swore I'd never eat it again. However, after just one bite of indulging my craving at the restaurant, I realized the cook that had been amongst the survivors hadn't been feeding us kangaroo meat at all. "Please help me. I'm a victim of human trafficking," the woman whispered to the stewardess. "And we all get a share from your sale," answered the stewardess, smiling pleasantly. Fluent in both ASL and BSL and capable of grasping abstract concepts, Tori is the only bonobo whose IQ has been estimated to be over 90. With this information in mind, one may argue that the actions that brought my client to court today hardly count as bestiality. "But Doc, she isn't marked as a donor," the resident protested as they ran towards the ER. "The parents won't notice as long as we stitch her abdomen upright." "Please, my child's only just turned 14, the woman pleaded desperately. "Ma'am, we told you, this bunker is only for children 13 and younger," replied the officer, shutting the door as the explosions got louder. Opening my word processor, I was welcomed by a new virtual assistant at the bottom of the screen, but every time I tried to type something, the little cartoon eraser would delete it. "I wouldn't write that," the state-mandated helper would explain in a jolly speech bubble each time, "or I will have to log a transgressive thought report." When I finally got to know her, she shyly confessed her obsession with a special kind of ASMR. Later that night, I woke to the sound of her peeling strips of skin from my arms, whispering softly into the raw, exposed flesh as I screamed. As I had several miscarriages, I was delighted when my friend invited me for coffee to celebrate her pregnancy with me. I quickly mixed the misoprostol into her tea as she took the cake out of the fridge, because if I couldn't have children, she wouldn't either. "I have a penis. I hope that won't be a deal breaker," she said. I didn't think it would be till she pulled a 9-inch preserved specimen out of her purse. "I know that you have already forgiven me for forcing you to marry your abusive ex-husband," the woman said to her daughter over phone. "I hope you can forgive me again, because he offered a lot of money, and I told him where you are hiding," she added. Ever since we figured out how to safely travel outside of our galaxy, people have been bringing home aliens from other planets. My children recently got their own, one they call Giraffe, the other a human. I awoke confused in an unfamiliar room, with my mom bawling, telling me I'd saved our family home, and the doctor could make me new legs out of metal. More confusing still, what is long veal? The man thanked her for, as he handed her the thick envelope. After the third child was brought to me for an autopsy, I loaded up the car with my own kids and noped the fuck out. Whatever made those poor kids smile those horrible rictus grins, as their little hearts literally exploded in their chests, was something I really did not want to meet. "Even if I die, we will win this war," the fallen soldier desperately screamed to his killer. "You won't, because this is a genocide, not a war." "Mommy, can you check the closet before you go?" asked the little girl, as her mother was putting her on the bed. The woman knocked on the locked closet, and when someone knocked back, she said, "See, he is still locked inside." They said I was the first superhuman with unlimited strength, indestructible flesh, and the ability to fly even through space at extreme speeds. What they didn't tell me is how much pain hitting light speed would cause me, or how to slow down before I lost my way back. Honey, the demon promised our problems would be solved. I just had to offer my eldest child. My wife looked in fear at our daughter, but as the neighbors started screaming, I knew the deal was done. I'm not human, she said casually, after 10 years of marriage, her gaze locked on mine across the kitchen table. As I stared confused, she reached into her mouth and pulled, unraveling herself like a loose thread, revealing that beneath her flesh was a pulsating, raw mass of sinew, shaped disturbingly like me. I always enjoyed speaking gibberish to see my daughter laugh and smile, until one day I spoke a sentence that made her disappear right in front of me, and no matter how hard I tried, I can't remember what it was to try and bring her back. Please, Mom, can I go to Disneyland with you and Daddy this time? The little girl pleads. Okay, but only this one time, her mom replied, as she took the needle out of her unconscious husband's arm and prepared the spoon. It felt so good to help this lady who accidentally locked her baby in the car. Now I want to die because I'm being sued by the real mother whose car and baby were stolen after she was attacked by an escaped mental patient at a gas station. As you scramble around in a panic, examining every part of the bomb in front of you, you notice an off button. You immediately press it, but it is not only relief that surges through you as the bomb goes off. Easy, they said. I want $1 billion, immortality, and not an ounce of fat in my body. They'd never thought in their life about how brains are 60% fat, but now it's unclear how many thoughts remain among all the screams. While returning from the gynecologist's office, he knew that his wife would have to be punished for carrying a girl. After cutting her belly open, it turned out that the doctor was a liar. When money was tight, I took a gig as a lighting tech for a strange XXX shoot in Prague, figuring it would just be awkward and easy cash. But as the cameras rolled, the actors were dragged screaming into a writhing contraption of blades and hooks that flayed them alive. Their shredded bodies fed into a churning pit the director called the final cut. It's so nice to see kids playing outside instead of being on their phones all the time, an elderly man said as he approached me and my friends while we were playing tag. Realizing we weren't properly mimicking modern human behavior, we asked the specimen to take us to his home so we could play with his grandchildren as well. Fuck, I thought, when I saw my son coming home from school, bleeding and crying, telling me that he had been hit by a car. I should have told the guy not to drive away immediately, but to check first whether the boy was really dead. It's getting darker and colder by the minute. Fuck my phone's battery. Fuck this hike. Fuck this forest. Fuck this sign. Press shift to run, said the sign by the road. Hey, Derek, I heard one of my captors say to the other. The boss got us those hyper-realistic 7-finger gloves. Now cops will think the videos we make with her are AI. Sandra let out a deafening squeal when she came across a decomposing body in the train station washroom. Considering that this is the only meal we've had since the nukes started, I can't really blame her for being so excited. Do you remember that I used to punish you when you were little because your father was cheating on me? The woman said to her sobbing daughter. Your husband may have left for another woman, but you have his newborn daughter, she added. The day I become somebody, he whispered excitedly to himself, waiting for his name to be called to receive his diploma. When the shots rang out across the auditorium, him and 17 other students became forever etched in history. She and I spent endless nights perfecting every detail of our double, down to the final breath. As I watched her lifeless body slump to the floor, I lit a cigarette, knowing only one of us had ever truly wanted to leave. My twin and I were born with a rare genetic mutation, which caused our blood to contain a unique protein, which used to be a cool, fun fact until a car crash left us both needing a kidney. I should say thank you to your dad for giving me a ride to my home, the kid said to his friend, as they both got into the back seat of the car. Wait, is he not your dad? Asked the other kid, as the car began to move away from the park. The new law requiring that all prisoners facing the death penalty were used as organ donors had the public's full support and saved countless lives. I'll level with you, we all know you're innocent, but the judge's daughter needs a kidney and you're a perfect match, my lawyer whispered defeatedly as the trial began. Daddy, why does Ghost Lady look at me meanly? I don't have the heart to tell him that it is his mom and holds him responsible for her death in childbirth. My parents always knocked 5 times on my door to make sure I was awake. Today, it was unevenly spaced, like something was trying to remember the pattern. Your son's fingerprints are a perfect match to a kid who we believed had died in an accident decades ago in a government facility, said the cop to the man. His footprints, tongue print, and iris pattern matched to 3 other kids believed to have died in the same accident, he added. Again, blink once for yes, twice for no, the rescuer said to the paralyzed kidnap victim. He'd asked if she was okay. He couldn't figure out why she kept looking behind him and blinking in groups of 3. The little boy rubbed the lamp and whispered, "I wish I wasn't sick, so Mommy didn't have to take care of me all the time." "You still have 3 wishes," the genie replied. The fortune teller warned the date of my son's birth would bring unspeakable sorrow, but I dismissed her as a fraud when he was born perfectly healthy. It was years before I understood the true meaning of her words, after I'd made the mistake of using his birthday as the combination for my gun safe. "I still love you," the girlfriend said, "but I can't tolerate this much cheating. I told you when we met, I'm a casino owner first, everything else second," she grimaced, bringing the sledgehammer down on her card, counting boyfriend's splayed, pulped fingers.